Hi and welcome. My name's Deb and I'm from Henley and Grange Community Centre, part of City of Charles Sturt. And I'm at the fabulous 19 on Green Community Centre here today at Brompton. Fantastic kitchen. And what we want to bring you is easy 4-step sourdough bread. So I haven't been making this for long, probably a couple of months. Like many others, I was at home for a couple of weeks. Thought I really want to get going with learning how to make sourdough bread. And after quite a few mistakes and lots and lots of YouTube videos, I started to work out that it wasn't actually as hard as I thought it would be. So we wanted to bring it to everyone to get you motivated to make your own bread. So we'll get going. What I did discover after watching lots of instructional videos is sourdough, it's all about the starter, the sour starter. It's a fermented product that you've got, and you really need to have a good starter to build that dough and to have a successful bread at the end. So that was, we're going to have a separate video that shows you how to make sourdough starter from scratch. But I was lucky, my friend had started at the same time or just earlier than me, and she had some starter that she'd bought. So she gave me a small amount and I started from there. So what we'll go through is the 4 steps today, and then we'll show you the finished product. So what you start with is, in our first step, we mix all of the ingredients together at once. And what I'm about to do is mix a dough, just a 1 loaf dough. So we've got an instruction sheet that will be on the website that you can access, and that will give you all of the quantities and so forth. So we use you can use any flour that you like. Unbleached flour is really good, is the best. We use a mixture of wholemeal and white flour, so about 60% white flour, 40% of wholemeal makes a really nice loaf. So what we do is, in your kitchen, we're trying to use just what you've got in your kitchen. We're trying to use baking methods and stuff of what you have already in your kitchen, so you don't have to go out and spend a whole heap of money. Very handy thing to have is a digital scales. If you've got normal scales, that's fine too. So what we're starting off with is about 400 grams of flour. So my bowl's on the scales, and I'm going to go to 400. So it's enough for 1 loaf, as I said, and we're at right on 400. And so then what I'm going to do is take the scales back to 0, so you tear it, and then we're going to go with 275 mils of tepid water. So you just don't want to use really cold water. It's best to use a tepid water, which is, by testing that, you just put your finger in, and if you can't feel it, it means it's about blood temperature, which is perfect. So I'm back to 0, and I'm going to add 275 mils of tepid water. And, you know, get as close as you can, and we're at getting that. Okay, so I've gone to 280, which is fine, just above 280. Then we're going to work with our starter. So this morning what I did to get the starter going, to get it alive, is it was at the level of the elastic band that you can see. And I fed it with 100 grams of rye flour and 100 grams of tepid water, mixed it, and it's probably been sitting like this for about 4 hours. Just be aware that in this cold weather that we're experiencing at the moment, you'll find that all the fermentation takes a lot longer. So if your kitchen's not heated and it's just your general cold kitchen, in summer this would work and get to this point a lot quicker. I did this at 8 o'clock this morning. It's now about 1:30, so it's taken that long to double. And as you may notice, it's what you're wanting is you're wanting a dome shape at the top. So that shows that it's alive, it's still working, and it should work quite well. So I'm just going to bring my scales back to 0 to tear it, and I'm going to put 200 grams of starter in there. And you'll see the starter has quite a vinegary smell to it, and it's, especially cold weather, it stays quite thick and almost puttyish, and that's good. That means it's nice and alive, and it's going to work well in our bread dough. So we're wanting 200. And what you want to do is make, if you've just got the 1 joe starter, as you can see, I've got starters in different levels there at the moment. You want to leave a certain amount of your starter in there, and then you'll keep feeding it, and you'll have a continuous supply of starter. So that's at about 216, which is okay. You know, give or take, get as close, as I said, as you can. So that's got our flour, our water, our starter, and now we're just going to put a little bit of salt in there. So all bread's got salt. We put 15 grams of salt, up to you. It just gives it bread a lot of a good flavour when it's got some salt in it. So we're just going to put 15 grams of salt in it. As I said, this is going to make 1 loaf. This is just all-purpose table salt, and that's going to give you that lovely, okay, we're at 15 grams. Okay, so that's all my ingredients. Now, some people will tell you to put the flour and the water together, leave it for a while, and then put your starter in later. We found it doesn't make a lot of difference. This is a sticky dough, so I did buy a sourdough baking kit online at one stage, and it came with a little proving basket, came with a mixer, which is quite handy, came with a cutter to cut the top of the bread when it's ready to go in the oven. Handy little kit, but honestly, all the things you've currently got in your kitchen are fine. So you can just use your normal spoon, and what you're looking to do is to bring this together and mix and get just a nice dough in your bowl. And what is great to do is to make this work for you. So we'll give you general time frames, but you'll find with a fermented product that you can leave it longer than we say or do it shorter. It's all about making it easy and making sure that you just do it within your own time frame. So it's slightly coming together now. And so I'm just mixing around, pulling it together, and it's making a pliable, keep flies away, a pliable dough. And you'll find this, as I've said, it is quite sticky. If you're doing it with your hands, you could certainly put some water on your hands or oil to keep it off. And this is about where I want it. So as you can see, very easy, easier than a cake dough. You're just pulling it together, sitting it down, and then you're going to put that to the side. So we just cover it with a tea towel, and then you put it to the side and leave it for minimum 30 minutes, hour if you can. I've left it, the other day I was doing one, and I left it for about 7 hours, and it worked really well. So after you've left it, we've had one that has been sitting here for about an hour and a half. After you've left it, you can notice that it has a really lovely smell about it. It's a sweet, slightly acidic smell, but it's actually combined and it's made a really nice dough. And if we stir that around, you'll notice that it pulls away from the bottom of the pan and it's quite stretchy. So that's a really good thing. So after that's sat there for an hour, you're going to come back, hour, 2 hours, whatever works for you. You're going to come back and you're going to, step 2 is to turn it and stretch it. And you're just developing the gluten in it, you're developing the dough, and you're just getting that lovely mixture that you want. It's got a glossiness about it because it's sat and it's fermented longer. And again, with this colder weather that Adelaide's experiencing at the moment, things do take a little bit longer. But that's quite a a good dough. Now, you would do that twice. You might do that, let it sit for half an hour and do it again if you've got time. If you haven't, use it straight away like that. We're going to use it straight away. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put a little bit of flour on the bench. So a clean bench, clean hands, and then we're going to drop the dough out and we're going to form it. So this is your step 3. So step 2 was you've mixed it together and you've stretched it a couple of times and you've left it there. And then step 3 is going to be that you're now going to shape it. So we're pulling it out together. Now, baking, you'll find a lot of people, commercially sourdough bread is made in steam ovens. Most of us don't have a steam oven. We've just got conventional ovens. So what we want to do is create a similar process as that steam oven. And there's a couple of ways of doing it. So what I'm doing now is I'm pulling this together and just going to move it around a bit. You don't want to use too much flour because it will absorb all of that flour, but you're just seeing what the dough is like. And so this is in the step 3, and we're just going to flatten it out a bit. Now, today what I'm going to show you is normally a lot of the instructional videos for home bakers, they'll tell you to use a Dutch oven, which is a heavy iron pan, enamelled, and it's got a lid to it. So a Dutch oven put into a conventional oven will create that steam and it works really well. But what we've also found is that you can, when you're proving your dough, you can go straight into a loaf pan and we can cook that in a conventional oven, create a little bit of steam ourselves, and you'll get a very, very quality product. So at the moment, what we're going to do is we're just going to stretch our dough a bit and we're just going to fold it a bit. And it's really nice to work with at the moment. And that was really just sitting there for an hour and a half. So we've plaited it a bit and now we're going to roll it around. And now I want to get it into a shape that is going to sit in that loaf pan quite well. So I'm just going to move it about a bit, get it in a nice loaf shape. Then I'm going to take my baking paper and I'm going to put it into my loaf pan. And there it will stay. So as you can see, it's quite nicely shaped and it's ready for our last proving. And what I then do, that's usually into the evening, I'm ready to put it away. So I cover it, and you can cover it with anything you like, a tea towel, and it's now going to go into the fridge. So, well, it should anyway. Fold that down. And so as you can see, not a lot of kneading. There's no kneading in that. It's just a bit of mixing, bit of making the dough, and that's ready to go in the fridge. So once I put that in the fridge overnight, you really can leave it in the fridge for longer than overnight. I know someone that's had it in for 48 hours. You don't want that dough to increase more than double. You want it to only ever increase double. The oven rise will allow that will give it some rise. So that's gone into the fridge. Alternatively, you could have used your Dutch oven. If you were going to use your Dutch oven, you would put your dough into the proving basket, again cover it and put that in the fridge. It's then been in the fridge overnight. In the morning, what I do, my process is, my step 4 is I turn the oven on hot. So 250, I want to get the oven nice and hot. If I'm using my Dutch oven, I put the Dutch oven into my oven, preheat it all, get that nice and hot. If I'm not going to use the Dutch oven, obviously I just leave the oven on preheating. I've taken my proved dough out of the fridge, so I've taken either the basket of dough out. Sometimes I make a double loaf, so I've got both of them. I take them out of the fridge and I let it sit on the cupboard while the oven is preheating. Then what I do is the oven's hot, it's ready to go. So I'm going to just cook this one. I take the cover off and then it's going to go into the oven. Now, it's good to give it cut it across the top, and that allows some of the steam come out of the dough, and it gives you a really good rise. So as I said, we're going to cook it in the loaf pan, and we're going to try and get some steam into the oven. So a couple of things that I do in that step 4 is I put a tray of ice cubes in just before I put this in, and that will cause steam into your conventional oven. And I also have a water sprayer, just one that you have around home. And as I put this into the oven, I spray the water in it, and that gives me good rise. And what I'm going to do is just before it goes in, I'm going to slice it. So this came with my kit, but honestly, you can just use a sharp knife from your kitchen, and you're just looking to get a really good slice into it. And so for me, I just take that across the top. Now, knowing that this hasn't had its, certainly hasn't had its 12-hour sit in the fridge, but so it's going to slice a bit better when it has had that. But I'm going to put that slice in to create that lovely shape and the steam to come out when it's cooked. So that's going to go into the 250 oven. I'm going to put it in there for 20 minutes. Then I will turn the oven down to about 220, and that will cook for another 25 minutes, depending on the colour that you're looking for. So if you're looking for a really deep brown, you might go for another 5 or 10 minutes. But if you're looking for just that nice golden brown, then 25 minutes usually does it. And that should double its size. So that should make that one loaf for you in the directions. And what you'll come out with is this morning we made 2 loaves, one being the loaf pan. So this is what was in the loaf pan. So as you can see, it's risen quite well from the middle. And when we cut it, it's a good idea when it comes out of the oven, leave it on leave it to cool for about an hour. I usually can't wait that long. Often it's Saturday morning or Sunday morning looking for some sourdough for breakfast, so it gets cut earlier. But I have found if you can leave it for an hour, you'll get a better cut and a better crumb. As you can see, this was in the loaf pan, straight in the oven with the steam method I was talking about. It's created lovely crust and some nice bubbles inside, and really delicious. So that's the one that was in the loaf pan. This one we cooked in the Dutch oven. And again, it's probably got a little bit more of the bubbles inside. Again, a really nice loaf to enjoy. The reason why I kind of like the loaf pan, and my girlfriend who's been cooking it got me onto that, was because it's a lot easier to cut. So the other thing that when you're cooking your own bread, really helpful to have a good bread knife. So this one we find a lot easier to cut and toast. And sourdough is really good. It lasts a long time. You can freeze it. You can stick it in the fridge. Absolutely delicious. It's a good fermented product for you. So people that might find a bit hard to eat normal, traditional light bread often find sourdough as a good one. So as I said, we just want to inspire you to get out there baking some sourdough. We've going to have the instructions on the website, easy, make it work for you. Nothing complicated, nothing fussy, some delicious bread to eat. So thank you for joining us, and look forward to catching you again.